Welcome to Design Your Life in Business, the podcast for leaders by Bright Mind Consulting Group. We give you the necessary tools to help you become the architect of not just your business, but your life too. I'm your host, Jevon Wooden. What's going on, everyone? It's your host, Jevon Wooden, the host of Design Your Life in Business. And today I have not one, but two guests, Mr. Corey Lewis and Thomas Drew of One and One. And you know, we're going to start with the first question we always ask, who are you? And Thomas, we'll go with you first. Who are you, Thomas?
I'm one of the co-founders of One and One, originally from Grand Rapids, Michigan, moved out to New York in 2015 to start school and try to figure it all out. And very grateful to be able to build something with my partner, Corey, that helps people build sustainable and positive habits within, we like to call the 7 dimensions of wellness. So we always talk and speak about how if you show somebody your habits, you show them your future, and we're just helping people become 1% better each day. That's what we're passionate about.
Absolutely. And Corey, I'll pass the mic to you. Who are you?
My name is Corey Lewis, co-founder of One and One, former professional football player turned wellness fitness entrepreneur. One and One is a true passion project for me, as well as T. Drew, obviously, in the sense that shortly after my professional football career ended, and I ventured into investment banking. And then quickly after that, I figured out that wasn't for me at that time of my life, kind of went into personal training and working with people at a high level to help them reach their fitness and wellness goals. And during that time, really realizing that it was much more mental than it was physical when it came to seeing people reach their goals. And being a part of that journey was a true eureka moment for me, as well as T. Drew, in the sense that we wanted to build something that could be scalable and reach more people to help people reach their goals. And one of the common denominators was habits. And that's why One and One exists in the form it does today. As T. Drew alluded to earlier, show me your habits, I can show you your future. We are a derivative of our habits, good and bad. Bad habits, obviously, will show you probably bad outcomes, and really good habits correlate to a lot of successful things. And that's what One and One is about, helping people become 1% better each day, building a positive habit each and every day to reach those goals that you set for yourself in the 7 dimensions of wellness.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. So we about to dive into it because both of y'all talked about habits, and that's pretty much what One and One is all about. So this is a conversation that we know habits make everything go. So let's get into it. You mentioned the 7 dimensions of wellness. We'll talk about that. But what sparked you both to say, you know what, let's come together and create something great?
Good question, Javon. I think when I know I'm speaking for Corey when I say this too, but when we first met each other, we kind of understood and realized what we really cared about as human beings, not necessarily what was going on in society at the time or what we had personal interest in, but what we really cared about. And when we got to know each other very quickly, we realized that we both had similar tenacity and drive, that we both were very curious and we both were able to learn very fast. But more importantly, we both had really big hearts and we wanted to help people. And Corey played professional football. I played college basketball. And so we were very big on like movement and activity, but we also began to understand from each other that we were very, very big on the mental aspect, not only mental health, but mental strength, which is something that Corey, and he'll tell you, it's something that I have always admired about him. When I first met him, is just his ability to persevere and his tenacity. Corey's someone that he tore his ACLs 4 times and had 8 total knee surgeries. And through that, this is someone that I'm able to play basketball with every weekend. That in and of itself is like a miracle of perseverance. So I was like, well, if he could make it through something like that, I can run a business with this person, because so much of entrepreneurship is perseverance and failure and continuing to figure out when you come up against a wall, you're either going to go around it, through it, or over it, but you can't let it stop you. So that's where it started. And then we really got to learn more about our passion for people and our passion for mental health and wellness. That's kind of how the business was born. But Along with that, we saw a void and an opportunity. There wasn't a lot of platforms that created content for us that talked to us. There wasn't a lot of products and things that we use that helped us do what we want our app to do for people. We set out to create it. And we also wanted to be a beacon of like partnership for entrepreneurship with two Black men. Because while there is companies with multiple Black founders or companies with singular Black founders, still only 1% of all capital raised goes to Black founders. So there's clearly not enough. So we were able to create any type of company that was successful, but show that we could do it together, put our egos aside, work together to create something greater. Than whether the company's successful at a crazy level or not. We know we at least will be able to inspire some entrepreneurs that look like us, because if you're going to be it, you got to see it. So that's kind of where it comes from, for me at least.
Yeah, that was a dope answer. Corey, I got to ask you, man, what drives you? Because you had 4 ACL surgeries.
4 ACLs. I lost count at this point, but I think 9 knee surgeries overall. And I mean, what drives me is that it could always be worse. That's something I stay true to. I live in New York City, where I see homeless people every day. I walk past them, and it truly breaks my heart to see people in a position to where they have to live on the street, and it seems like they don't have anybody to go to, or they ran out of people to go to. And again, it could be multiple reasons why they may have ended up there, but it could always be worse, right? So who am I to have this woe is me attitude based on different circumstances that come about? I have a roof over my head. I have access to food, money in my pocket. So I always look at the positive and being able to control what I can control. And that's what helps me stay sane and stay focused on the goal. Otherwise, it's easy to dwell on the negatives, right? We all go through things. Nobody's problems are bigger than somebody else's. It's all relative. So I don't like complaining. I don't like complaining about what I can't control. Tore my ACL. There's nothing I can do to go back and fix it. And of course, multiple times, unfortunately. Would you rather not tear your ACL multiple times? Sure. But I'm a big believer in my faith, and I believe everything happens for a reason. And God has a plan for me and for my relationship with T. Drew, and for One and One, and for what it's meant to be. And I got to keep pushing and to see how this plan plays out. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, man. Well, I wholeheartedly agree. We all face adversity, and this kind of ties into what One and One is all about, right? So tell me a little bit more. You both mentioned the 7 dimensions of wellness. Talk about those dimensions and how One and One aims to provide a solution at each.
I'll give this one to Corey, but I can speak for the app specifically. I think Corey can dive a little bit deeper just on the science. But for the app, our goal was to create a system that allows you to look at your life holistically and tell the app which area that you felt needed the most work, and then allow the app to help you break a goal down into a manageable habit, and have the app hold you accountable for that habit through action every single day. Because, and Corey will talk to this about why the 7 dimensions are so important, but what I know and what you know and everybody knows is that as humans, we're not one dimension. I'm sure you know tons of people where they may be a physical specimen, but their emotional and mental wellness is not where it's supposed to be. Or financially, you may not feel like you have a good base, which causes you to be emotionally unwell, which then will cause you to not work on your physical. Or, as I'm sure you know, and I know people like this too, they have all the money in the world, they're in great shape, and they may be emotionally and mentally well, but they don't have healthy relationships, and they're searching for good relationships and the right people around them. So the 7 dimensions of wellness is important because as humans, we're holistic, and well-being should be fragmented. And so our solution specifically with the app is something that allows you to look at your whole picture as a human, but focus on incremental actions over time to actually become 1% better each day. But Corey can go deeper on why each dimension is important.
Absolutely. I think we need to go deeper because a lot of us, we think about the emotional component, the mental component, physical component, and for some of us, maybe the spiritual component. But tell us more about the 7 dimensions and how everyone can go ahead and make sure they're full in each.
So to answer that question, unfortunately, people focusing on being full in each may not be of interest. And that's why we attack it the way we do, because there's no one size fits all approach when it comes to wellness and well being. So the 7 dimensions that we go based on are financial, physical, mental, spiritual, intellectual, social, and environmental. And these are the 7 dimensions that we felt were the most relatable to most people. And most people fall somewhere in that spectrum of really having those things matter to them. So, but what we realize is that if, let's say, if you're not where you need to be mentally, it's hard to get to where you need to be physically. And you may not be where you are mentally because your financial wellness isn't where it needs to be. Maybe your financial literacy, you're not budgeting properly, you're not reaching your financial goals, you're not getting closer towards owning that home that you wanted to own by the time you were 30, whatever it may be. So it's like, how do we enhance your financial wellness, which will ultimately correlate to enhancing your mental wellness, which will allow you to then enhance your physical wellness. So it's all about identifying where you are at each dimension and whether or not it even matters to you. Some people, I know for certain people, they may not want to hear it, but some people may not really care about environmental wellness. And that's okay. That's not
It's about keeping it real with yourself, right? You just got to know what you care about and have those values align with what you're doing.
exactly whatever aligns with you within those 7 dimensions of wellness. Our goal is to help you identify what that is, where your weaknesses are. First, identifying what dimensions matter to you, and then where your weaknesses are within those dimensions, and how do we enhance those to have them all create a compound effect that will enhance your overall wellness and of what you're doing on a daily basis. Because again, you may not be where you need to be mentally, financially, and physically, and that could all be stemming just from the fact that you're not where you need to be financially. Now let's create a 60 to 90-day plan to enhance your financial wellness, which will also enable your mental wellness to get better. We'll be also feeding you content, personalized and catered to you as well. But then also let's enhance your physical wellness as well. So we really believe that we have to identify which dimensions of wellness really matter to you. And then we have to personalize and cater our content delivery towards you so that you're reading the necessary things that matter to you, are relatable to you based on where you're at in your overall wellness journey to enhance your long-term wellness journey. That's just how we look at it. And I love being able to look at the holistic picture in this way, because then it really helps people feel like, oh, okay, like that's where I'm struggling. I need to enhance that. And I think it's going to help me move the needle in these other areas as well.
Yeah. No, this is good because it ties into something my concept I talk about, owning your kingdom. And it's kind of like this cyclical thing, like you were talking about, everything ties in together. So let's get into this habit formation piece because that is critical to what you all do over at One and One. So tell me a little bit about habits. How do they form? And a lot of us got some bad ones. So how can we break them and replace them with some good things?
Yeah, so we've been really just obsessed with this concept, obviously, because of what our app does. And I'm sure you've heard of this book, Atomic Habits. A lot of people have, by James Clear. That's where a lot of the kind of the nucleus of the system of what we're trying to create comes from. And it really comes from three things. A habit comes and is able to be formed with a cue, an action, and a reward. And there's like a loop that forms from that and it becomes a system. And what a lot of people don't know is that when you are able to form a habit and you're able to have and create a situation where you're able to form a habit, have that habit attached to a reward and be able to build momentum with that over time. Something I always say is that the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest and the ninth wonder of the world is momentum. If you combine those two things over time, your habits are what you just do, whether you know them or not. You do these things happen in an area, in an environment. This is why environmental wellness is so important to habits, because the environment can be a trigger for a habit. So, like, for example, one of my habits is like flossing every day in the morning and at night before I brush my teeth. But that habit is in my brain because it always happens at the bathroom sink. That's like the environment, right? So habits are formed. They say a lot of science points to different things. Some people say like habit is formed in 21 days. You'll hear some people say it takes 30 days, 60 days. What we like to say is we like to try to help people form habits to turn into a lifestyle. And it takes 21 to, let's say, 40 days to create a habit. It takes 90 days to create a lifestyle. And once it's a lifestyle, that's when you really know and understand who you are through those habits. So it starts with really an identification of where you're trying to go and a goal and what goal that you're trying to set for yourself. And then it's about breaking that down into very small things that you can do each day to get to that goal. And it's about continuous action over time. Now, and the important part about all this, if you go for the mountain and the top of the mountaintop, like, of course, you're not going to be able to stay consistent. And this is where most people fail. 80% of people don't set goals for themselves. And out of the 80% of the people that do, 70% of the people still fail at reaching those goals. Yet billions of dollars is spent on New Year's resolutions and all this stuff every year. And it's because it's misaligned. What people don't do is they're not able to set the right intention and reason behind the goal they're trying to reach. Instead of, I want to like look this way for this person, so this is why I want to lose weight. Instead, it needs to be like, I want to feel better in the skin I'm in this way. Like, this is why I want to do this, aligning with intention. And then people think they can just go from not going to the gym to going to the gym for 2 hours. It doesn't work like that, right? You know what I mean? So how do you identify where you're trying to go, but break it down into these very small steps? So let's say, and this is like what our app kind of helps suggest. It's like, okay, I want to go to the gym and work out 4 to 5 times a week. It's like, okay, like let's start with a habit of like waking up and putting your gym shoes on every day. Let's turn that into like, let's go on like a 10 to 15 minute walk twice a week, right? Let's get used to some movement. Then it's okay, let's do a habit of, I'm going to go to the gym and then leave so I can just practice showing up, like practice the consistency, practice it. And then over time, gradually that turns into a habit. Because if you do these small things, small action, this is what Atomic Habits talks about. And I'll shut up after this, but like it talks about the power of small incremental actions consistently over time to get to a result in a way where you're able to just pick your head up and kind of look at what you've done and say, wow, okay, over time, all these little things really did add up, these little actions. And so those are why habits are so powerful. And that's kind of how you create them. You have to understand your goal. You have to be able to break your goal down into small things. You have to understand what your cue and trigger of your habit is. You have to have an action, and then you have to have a reward so that the reward kind of tells your body and your brain that like, there's some dopamine here. Like if I do this, I get this. And if I continue to do this, it's going to continue to go. And there's other stuff too, like habit stacking. So like a way to create a reading habit is if you're reading, but you stack that with like walking on the treadmill, right? Then you're able to like say, okay, like I'm stacking a walking habit with a reading. So like there's ways to hack it, but that's kind of like the brass tacks of what it comes down to for me.
Nah, that was good, man. That was good. Thank you for going in depth and detail on that, because this is something that I don't know about y'all, I don't know your background, but we are three black men sitting here talking about habit formation. And this wasn't something, I mean, I grew up in Rochester, New York. This wasn't something I talked about. I didn't even understand the science of habits and the impact of it until my later years, right? And even as I was doing things, addressing goals, I still didn't quite understand habits and habit formation. So can you talk a little bit about maybe how the cultural component can impact habits, and then also how one and one aims to address that? Like, what does the app look like? How does it address like people's, their beliefs, their ideations?
So I'll let T Drew go into the app aspect of it and the cultural aspect. Obviously, when you talk about culture, are you referring to like us as black men?
Yeah, us, everyone, because everyone has like a cultural component, a belief system, their upbringings, everything is so different. So I think that, yeah, giving you guys an opportunity to talk about how one and one, because I'm sure the listeners are like, oh, this sounds dope, but what if, right? So we want to kind of talk about those what ifs and how one and one addresses it.
Yeah, so we do lead with a focus on the BIPOC community, just because we obviously understand as two black men that wellness is not as accessible for that specific community. And although while our platform and our app is catered to all, it again, and because it's a personalized situation, we have found a way to accomplish both, be able to address and be relatable to the BIPOC community, but also be relatable to other communities as well. In short, the beauty of a habit emerging and a habit becoming a habit is that the brain fully stops participating in decision making. And that's the goal of a habit. You're trying to remove your brain from decision making to just doing it. And that's the important part of building a habit, because when I wake up in the morning, I don't think about brushing my teeth or not. I just brush my teeth. That's a habit. That's like, that's what you call oral wellness. That's the conversation people can have with their dentist. But that's a habit that typically is formed as a kid from your mother making you brush your teeth every day when you woke up and when you went to bed. And I don't think about it, I just do it. Same thing goes. The reason why most people get in a funk with their physical wellness, because they get home from work or maybe it's before work, they make a decision. I'm going to go to the gym. They're in this decision making process. And more times than not, you're going to decide not to go. So when you just go and you just do it, and to T. Drew's point, you really figure out what that cue and that trigger is that leads to that routine / action. So if your cue is every day after work, 5 p.m., I go to the gym, that's the cue. This time of day, that's the action. And then the reward is working out. How I feel after I do a workout, do that over and over again. Now you remove the decision making aspect out of it because it just becomes so routine and it becomes so automatic. And that's the beauty of it. And from a cultural standpoint, I think this ties back into what I was saying earlier. There's no one size fits all approach, whether you're a black man or a white man, an Asian man, Indian, whatever it may be. We all have different upbringings, different backgrounds in which we came up with. There's black people who grew up with privilege, who grew up with a lot. And there's obviously a lot of black people who didn't. So that's why it's so important about meeting people where they're at. We all have had different traumas, whether we've dealt with them or not, had different experiences. We have different environments. And that's why it's so important for T. Drew and I to create a solution that's obviously speaks to all and is scalable, but also personalized for each particular person based on who they are individually. And again, all of those cultural aspects play into that and tie into that train of thought. So from a cultural standpoint, we take that into account, and really based on our onboarding and our assessments, it will be able to factor those things in when helping people build the necessary habits that they need to build.
Yeah, specifically for the app, just to answer your question about that, Jevon, like we spent months trying to figure out the right type of onboarding. So figuring out onboarding that asks the right questions, not the wrong ones, while at the same time creating a situation where it wasn't invasive to the user, but also made the user feel and understand that they were accepted and that our app is inclusive. And it's by design that, like, when you go to our website, you see all of our content, everything. It's by design that you see people of color first. You see Black people first. You see tons of people of color. A lot of the content that you can search and find is rooted in specifically what we have gone through, just because we know that that's needed. And not in like a selfish way. We were like, what type of stuff like would be valuable to us that we can't find on askmen.com or Goop or like any of these other places where, no offense, but all it is like white women talking about yoga. Like, that's not what wellness and well-being is. It's the same reason why we have a Puerto Rican male hosting our mental health podcast. Like, it's all by design, right? Because over 70, like the percentage of suicide is close to 70% men. It's a huge problem. And like, there needs to be more destigmatization in men talking about their mental health, but it needs to come from men of color to start. This is all by design. So specifically with the app, when you go on there and the onboarding, we don't ask you about your job. We don't ask your life stage. And what does that mean? So are you a student? Are you a working professional? Are you in family planning? Or have you retired? And this is very important because as you change life stages, your dimensions of wellness and goals are going to change. And so if you start with letting the app know about that, while also letting the app know, how do you identify? Are you Black, African American? Are you like letting the app know? It is able to actually lead you along the path of fulfillment based on, okay, some Black students that are between the age of 20 to 35 may need this type of content, and we may need to suggest them these types of goals and habits based on this dimension, right? A working professional that is a 35-year-old white male may be trying to tap into spiritual wellness a little bit more, right? Which may lead into what he may be tapping in this life stage. So we were very cognizant about that, not only with the design of the onboarding and how we ask questions and making it deep enough to ask the right questions, but non-abrasive enough to allow the user to feel comfortable, even down to some of the stuff you see, like there's a brown hand emoji and a light brown hand emoji. It's little things, right? Where when we look at these other experiences, they just don't have that. You can tell that it wasn't a people-centered design. It wasn't meant to have somebody like us go into it and feel good. Like something that we told our team before we even started building the app, and I told them this, I was like, I don't want to build this if we can't do these two main things. The app needs to make people feel better after they use it than what they felt before. And I think not enough technology does this. And if the app, if we can't make something that people want to share with other people because of their experience, I don't even want to make it. So in doing that, you have to understand who you're trying to get the thing and the audience is before it happens so that it's truly purposeful design. And so when you look at our content on web or on our app and you're using it specifically for people of color, we want you to feel like you're using something that was made for you because you're able to go in. The other point, in what Corey said earlier, we have been robbed of knowledge as a people. So the ability to have an app and give people something where you can click on the library and you all of a sudden have tons of content from expert individuals that's breaking all this stuff down in the 7 dimensions of wellness, it doesn't get more accessible than that, right? You're able to download something for free that is tailoring help towards you, but then you're able to just tap a library section and you're all of a sudden given just a bevy of resources that you can just read and soon be able to listen to and all these other things that we're working on. That's what accessibility is to us. And that's what's important because the difference between going from here to here is knowledge. And even more importantly, it's knowledge that is served up to be personalized to you in a way that truly benefits you.
Absolutely. And I love everything you all are saying. It's, yeah, knowledge is definitely key, but I love the component of helping people apply the knowledge that one and one had because we're inundated with things to do and all this awesomeness that is information in the world and also so much that distracts us. So I like that you keep it focused and personalized on what I'm looking to accomplish. So it's not like, oh, I'm just listening to a guru tell me I need to do this. It's, oh, we took the time to identify what matters to you. Like you talked about earlier, Corey, some people may not care about this dimension. Maybe they want to focus and put their energy towards this. So I love what you're talking about. So before we move to our by design segment, I got to ask you, what are your aspirations as far as one and one? Where are you looking to take this?
I think we want to help hopefully millions of people build habits that stick and ultimately, and also not only build habits that stick, but also personalized wellness routines that stick and that are sustainable. I think that's definitely what we like to do. And also stemming from what you just said, we don't have an information problem. Google fixed that a long time ago. We have an implementation problem. And that's ideally what we would like to accomplish with one and one. How do we take information to execution and implementation? Google has all the information in the world. If we can, when it's all said and done, say that we help thousands and hopefully millions of people take information to implementation that's catered and personalized to them to build habits that stick, and wellness routines that last and are sustainable throughout the different phases of their life, then I think we did our job.
Yeah, man. I think just quickly to his point, there's a real opportunity here to truly help people become 1% better and understand the power of positive incremental changes over time and what that can really do for you. Because it's a real problem with the fragmentation of wellness and people thinking that, okay, if I do what this guru is saying in this thing, or if I do this and this thing, it's this thing that I talk about a lot called like mental masturbation, where it's like, we're just like, we're all about listening to this and hearing this and whatever. And that's great, but nothing worth having is going to happen without action. So if 1 and 1 can help people, millions of people come together to get 1% better through the power of aligned action, through the vehicle of habit, then we can truly help people become happier, more fulfilled, and truly live better lives. And that's like what drives us, specifically because people that look like us really, really need, but the whole world needs.
Well, before we got live, I got one more question. What is behind the name 1 and 1?
Great question. So when we were naming the company, one of our favorite moments in sport and one of our favorite moments in history is when Muhammad Ali knocked out Sonny Liston first round, first minute. So we were looking at that when we were thinking about naming the company. And then we kind of said out loud 1 and 1. We were like, okay, well, the story obviously isn't about like, there's going to be a story of perseverance. There's going to be a story of like achievement. And so the original logo of the company actually started off as like a silhouette of Muhammad Ali. But then we were like, well, we might get in trouble like all this. So as we begin to talk about it more in the goal of the business, it became very apparent that we truly wanted the 1 and 1 to stand for the fact that you are only given one mind and one body in this life, but those things need to come together. And that's the and. They cannot be separated. Like it's not just your mind and it's not just your body. They need to come together. Now, obviously, the 1% better together, which is our slogan, obviously makes sense because that's the vehicle. That's how we want you to get there. But the understanding and what 1 and 1 truly means is the fact that you are only given one mind and one body in this life. And in order for you to get the most out of them, they have to be together. They can't be separate.
I love that. Kind of like a double entendre, man. It's like 1 and 1 and 1% better together. You can talk about the individual, the mind and the body, but then also as a unit collectively. So I love that, man. So we're going to switch to our by design segment where I ask every guest the same 3 questions. And since it's two of y'all can say who's going to answer what, or y'all can both answer it. All right. We're going to let y'all flow because y'all rocking today. All right. First question. What has been the hardest part about designing a life in business you don't need a vacation?
Yeah, I think you sacrifice a lot. You sacrifice a lot of relationships, personal relationships, family, friends, etc. To me, that's the hardest part. But at the same time, when you're aligned on a vision and a goal, because you got a lot of people, you got a lot of naysayers who may say that whether they don't believe in you or they don't believe you're going to make it. And also with any level of success, sometimes your biggest supporters when you were at the bottom turn to haters or jealousy or whatever it may be. That can be an issue that you deal with as well. So I think a combination of those two things, it can feel very isolated at times just because you're at a different area of your life trying to push them forward as an entrepreneur or being self-employed. And then you have people working for you and you're always constantly raising money to keep the lights on and make sure everybody is getting paid and take care of everybody. You have tough conversations with different employees when you got to scale back, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're good people like Tidru and I, we like to help a lot of people, we like to see people always constantly doing well. And you're kind of, when you're, I don't want to say in charge of how well somebody's doing, when things aren't going as great and you got to have those tough conversations, that could be that's the tough side of business. And I think Tidru would say the same.
Yeah. I just think the hardest thing is I think people don't realize how much it actually takes. And I'm not saying that in like, you got to work hard.
It's honest, man. It's honest. And that's why I like to ask this question because That's the answers that I always get, man, the real. So go ahead, man.
Everybody likes to always say that, oh, you need to take breaks. You need to not think about this so much. You need to whatever. Having a business is truly like having a child if you're really doing it for the right reasons and doing it the right way. And when it's not growing the way that you want it to, or when there's problems, it feels like you're not able to give your child food. If you are needing more capital and you're starting to run out of one way, it feels like your child is about to die. When you're think about that as a parent, like, and this is what it is when you're building something. And so when people tell me like you need to take more breaks, you need to like we run a wellness company. Like, I get it, but building something, people don't understand that if you're really going to build it, and if you're really trying to build something great, it's going to take all of your mental energy. It's going to take a ridiculous amount of, you're going to have to get up like 75 times after getting knocked down 74 times and like continuing to persevere. Like, Jay-Z, like one of the best things he's ever said is like, most brilliant thing we ever did was just not give up. Cause you can be the smartest entrepreneur in the world and the greatest idea. And so many people have just stopped. And we have probably had so many amazing ideas, concepts, things taken away from us just because that entrepreneur was not able to persevere. And so I think the grit is something that isn't talked about enough. It's needed. And there's different types of entrepreneurship. Yes, everybody can create or have a business, but if you're creating a certain type of thing and you don't have a certain level of grit and you're not ready for the commitment that it truly takes, it is not worth it. Trust me, because you will deal with depression, anxiety, isolation, stress, all these things. You have to truly commit and it truly has to be part of you if you're really going to do it. And if you're willing to do that, then you'll succeed.
Absolutely, man. The breakthrough is on the other side of the breakdown because it's gonna happen. Like you said, a million times a day. I'm like, God damn, what was I thinking, man? Why did I start this again? I could have just stayed in my job and been good. But yeah, it's a different mindset for sure. So I'm glad y'all giving the honest answers and talking about that. From a wellness company, everyone, you hear what it takes to build this because you care, right? Because this is not just something you're looking to make money on. And I think that's the distinction, right? When those people, they probably were looking to make money, they said, I can make some money. And if they didn't, they stopped, right? Or they said, you know what? It just takes a little bit more than I'm willing to give. And they stop. So go ahead.
If you're, it has to be like very quickly, it has to be mission over product. It has, because if you're building something just for money, like it's a good chance you're going to fail. You just are. Because when it gets hard, you're not going to have the right why and you're not going to have the right result. Like, that's why the mission is important.
There you go. Yeah, we could spend so much time. That could be another episode on this conversation alone because I love the way y'all look at it and perceive it and really go deeper. But I'm gonna go to the second question. Second question is, what is the best lesson you've learned on your entrepreneurial journey? And I can't think you kind of covered it, but I'll let y'all go ahead. Whoever wants to take it.
I think the best lesson learned from an entrepreneur standpoint is staying relative, always staying connected in order to, because raising money is part of the game. And that's a very important part of the game because so many companies, especially companies founded by Black men, undercapitalized. Fortunately for us, we have some great believers in us as men, which just doesn't happen every day, but that happened by way of Tidra and I going above and beyond to nurture these relationships. And as isolating as entrepreneurship can be, it's very important that you immerse yourself in networking opportunities to get in front of people who can help you, whether it's helping you with capital, helping you with strategic advice, whatever it may be, all introductions to help scale your business. There's so many different ways people can help you, and it doesn't only have to be about capital. So it's very important to keep yourself in the mix, as daunting as it can be, super stressed and just trying to focus on the business. I will say if there's anything that is important for you to remove yourself from the day-to-day grind of the business for, it is to get yourself out there in front of people to talk about what the hell you're doing, also get comfortable doing that, but also show people what you're about, show people who you are, so people can support your passion. So people can, however they want to support it. So many of our current investors and people who believe in us were just by way of us nurturing those relationships and them believing in what we were trying to accomplish on a larger scale and in a bigger picture. I think that's super important if you're really trying to take things to the next level, because you can definitely bootstrap your way towards success, but at one point or another, you're probably going to need some sort of help. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be from a capital perspective, but it could be a strategic introduction or relationship, whatever it may be. And the only way you get those prominent leads to be able to do those things is by knowing people who like you for who you are and also who know you. It's a lot harder to do these things from a cold outreach perspective or whatever it may be. So definitely very important for all entrepreneurs to stay in the mix as much as possible, just immerse themselves with people who can help in whatever way possible to help take their idea and their passion to the next level.
Awesome. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, quickly, I would just say, like, I was going to say relationships are everything, but just in a different way. And then also, I would say you're not always right. Like, as a leader, you need to understand that you need to err on the side of I'm probably wrong, then I'm right. And if you think every day and err on the side of I'm probably wrong, it's going to force you to be curious and learn and truly be data driven so that everything that you're doing is not only backed up by your intuition, but you have a reason to show as to why you believe this. But back to the relationship piece, I would like, as a founder, you think that a lot of times you need to like learn how to do everything yourself, which learning is very important. Learning the right things is extremely important. But what you fail to realize, and what I didn't realize earlier, is that there's no shortcuts in business, but the only true shortcut is to be able to have a relationship with somebody that has done what you're trying to do. That's the only shortcut in the book, because this person will literally be able to say, they will have all of the, like, I'm obsessed with like patterns and like over time, like how information like adds and lines up to get to an outcome. And if a person has already done what you're doing, think about how many shots on goal they've had to get to that point. Think about how many like actions they've taken and things they've failed at and mistakes they've done to get to that point. They're going to either know exactly what to tell you to do and how to do it to de-risk your whole situation. Because as an entrepreneur or an investor, you need to think about, how can I de-risk either what I'm building or what I'm investing in? So they completely de-risk it. And if they don't know how to do it, they'll probably just introduce you to the person that will help you do it, which is like the biggest opposite of a time suck that you can have as an entrepreneur. So when I say relationship building, this concept I didn't really realize until I got more down in my entrepreneurial journey. My executive coach kind of helped me realize that like people always think about their like advisory board for their company, which is great. You should think about that. But you as a founder, you need to have your personal advisory board. And this is like a concept I wish I would have understood earlier, because it would have made my life so much easier over this last 7 years. You need to have a personal advisory board of people that believe in you or that mentor you, where you can call on them for advice, for a way out of a tough situation. And they'll help you, not necessarily because you bring value to them in a way, but because they believe in you. And so that was a concept I'm like, okay, I now have a personal advisory board where for every situation, especially with the business, I'm able to call on them and say, okay, hey, I did this research. I did this thing. This is what I think. What do you think? Oh, no, this. Or, oh, no, I got, this person. So that's the concept. It's very important. And then lastly, really quick, like in 2023, I just think transparency and authenticity is so important. So if you're an entrepreneur and like you're faking the funk, you're trying to be something you're not, you're whatever, the only thing you make it with is confidence. That's it. Like You need to really understand who you are, be transparent, be genuine, because that's going to be like your calling card. When you tell your story, when you recruit people to work for you, when you need people to see the vision, when you need people to believe in you, if you're being someone you're not, you can only hold that up for so long. And the best investors and the best people that you can hire will always sniff that out. So that's the last thing I would say.
That's key. And that's one of the reasons why I became a coach, is to guide. A lot of people, the word coaching is like a misnomer these days, because coaches are actually advisors or consultants. We got author coaches and book coaches and all this, but a coach does exactly what you just said, right? They're going to ask you those tough questions. They're going to get you to look at it from a different perspective. So I love that you said you need have a coach, T. Drew. That's good. I just wanted to point that part out.
Yeah, I was lucky, man. And Corey has a coach as well. I mean, Corey's big on this. He's like, once I realized that all the like majority of the most successful founders had a coach, I was like, I need to figure this out.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at sports. Everyone has a coach in sports. The top players had someone there. So I mean, it's just a given, right? If you in entrepreneurship, you look at this the same way. If you're not playing, right? This is your livelihood. So what better way to take yourself up to the next level? So one more question. What are 3 tips or tools that you'd recommend when scaling your life or business?
I'll be very quick with this one. So my favorite tool is the way that I look at my schedule and productivity. And I don't know if this works for me specifically just because I'm ADHD or like whatever, but I love time blocking. And there's a little caveat that I put to it that really works for me, and it's called OBT. It stands for one big thing. So I'm huge on time blocking, which is essentially just okay, you write down all the things you need to do. You rank them via color. So and this is how I do it. I give the urgent things a red. I give the, okay, this needs to be done, but it's not urgent, a yellow. And then everything else is green. When I see these colors on my stuff, it immediately triggers in my brain what I need to be doing, because like as people, we get overwhelmed. And so if you see a big to-do list, you'll just immediately get overwhelmed. But if you color code it and know, like it helps you. And so I time block my days. So I look at my day, I know what I'm supposed to be doing in what amount of time. But more importantly, the OBT is okay, because we're human. If I don't stay within my time blocks, if I don't get stuff done, whatever, what's the one thing that I need to do or get done that would just make this day a success? So I would feel good about this day. So I always know what that one thing is. And it doesn't, sometimes it's not even big. Sometimes it's like just read 10 pages of this book or send this one email or whatever. But as long as I get the one big thing done each day, it makes me feel good. So that's a tip that I would give people to try to build momentum within themselves, figure out how to time block your day. OBT. I think my second tip is you need to have something that brings you joy outside of work. Like it's huge. I was avoiding this for a long time. All I did was work until I almost started to lose my mind because I wasn't giving anything to like a creative hobby or anything that didn't have to do anything with work. And it's hugely important, especially for creative people. Not like, I don't see the gym as like a hobby. The gym is a habit. Like that's like, but figuring out something that you do that brings you joy that isn't work, and it allows you to come back to your work and do your work with like so much fervor and purpose. And I think the last tip is just understanding like the power of movement, man, and just well-being. Like I'm not just saying this just because of our company, but like when you understand that if you get the amount of sleep that you should, and if you are moving and if you are sweating, when you truly understand that that gives you a better brain and a better body to be better in your business, you then realize that you can't neglect your health, because when you're neglecting your health, you're then neglecting your business. So I used to be like, oh, I'm gonna just get 4 or 5 hours of sleep and whatever. My brain wasn't working right. Obviously, there's nights where we're gonna have to pull all nighters. Obviously, like there's stuff, but like just the last thing is just understanding how your personal well-being and the things that you can control, getting sleep, movement, whole foods, sunlight, good people around you, just those main things. how that actually will influence your output. Because as entrepreneurs, we don't need to be about productivity. We need to be about efficiency. And so I went from being crazy obsessed with productivity to how can I be the most efficient? In order for me to be the most efficient, I have to do these things. And so that's the matter.
Absolutely. Man, that was awesome. It's been a fantastic conversation, gentlemen. And I love what you all are doing with one-on-one. So how can the listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so all of our social media is at One and One app. If you want to download the One and One app for free, you can just go to the App Store, type in the number one, AND, the number one. It'll come up. You'll see, 1% better, all that. I'm put Corey on the spot because he does some amazing content just within all this stuff. So his social is at Big C One and One, and he can tell you more about that. But he's a great follow because he does like tons of inspirational content around this stuff. And then me personally is It's T Drew, ITSEDRAW.
Awesome. Awesome. Corey, any parting words before we conclude, brother?
No, man, just thank you for having us and to talk about one and one. Love what you're doing as well. For all the people listening, download the One and One app for free. Start building better habits, building habits that stick. We would love your feedback, and we would love to continue to enhance what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish. We're just getting started. So any feedback is going to be very important at this stage as we continue to scale and grow this thing to the next level.
Before we even get off of this, man, so we on air, I'm going to download that thing right now, make sure I'm supporting and doing it exactly what you're talking about, man, because it's important that we do this. So I want everyone listening to go ahead and download One and One and give some feedback, man, because this is a movement. It's like they said, this is lifestyle. It's important. The age has started going down. We're starting to live shorter again. So we got to do something to address that. And One and One is one of the solutions. So to all the listeners, just remember to keep ascending and keep being 1% better every day, as my fellas at One and One has said. See you later. Design Your Life in Business, the podcast for leaders, is brought to you by Bright Mind Consulting Group. To find out more about Bright Mind Consulting Group and how you can become the best leader possible, visit brightmindconsultinggroup.com. Make sure you search for Design Your Life in Business on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Bright Mind Consulting Group, we cannot thank you enough for listening.